Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's ASCII here for Nerf TV. Let's talk Elder Scrolls Online. So to preface this video, the terms WoW Killer and WoW Clone are more summing up two schools of thought on the Elder Scrolls Online. Is it going to be the next big MMO, or is it going to be just another title to fade into an awkwardly fitting free-to-play model within a year? So in the killer corner we have the points that the game has a massive budget, with some sources claiming as much as $200 million. The development team working on it is pretty large and they've been at it for a long time now, so they have the money, the talent and the time. It's also one of the most loved gaming franchises of history. With a huge following and the massive success of Skyrim, they've established a fan base that will buy the game initially. So all the ingredients are there, but even with the right stuff going into the pot it could still get burnt, and as we saw with the release of Star Wars The Old Republic in late 2011. They had the budget, rumoured to be in the same region as ESO's, which made it the most expensive game ever made at the time. They had the talent, it was made by BioWare, a company with a list of smash hits as long as my arm. And they had plenty of followers and fans. Star Wars can hardly be called a niche market, and it got pretty good initial reviews across the board. Out of the gate it did fine, sales were solid, they had some issues here and there with the servers being full, but that's not unusual for any MMO launch. However, the game quickly began to fall out of favour, many players claiming it was WoW with lightsabers and essentially deciding it wasn't worth the monthly subscription. As numbers fell, it introduced a free-to-play model, but even that couldn't really save it, and it's just slowed its demise. So money, talent and fans clearly isn't any guarantee, however it's a better place to start than most. Initial sales are almost guaranteed to be good, and that will create a good experience for the first month or so of the game, so long as there's no major technical problems anyway. Population is important for an MMO success, and a good first month could see renewed subscriptions and players committing for the future. And now for the clone camp. It certainly has things in common with MMOs of the past, WoW being one, but it has features from other games here as well. What is worrying though is they don't really seem to have iterated on anything, and I can't help but think that seasoned MMO players, those who have played a variety of games, will find this to just be more of the same. Copying is not necessarily a bad thing. All games copy features, and in an area of gaming so clearly dominated by select titles, it's understandable. However, if you look at the games that actually hold their own against the lumbering behemoth that is World of Warcraft, you see games that do things very differently. EVE is a great example of this, a long-running game that's held its own absolutely fine. Guild Wars 2, even though perhaps it didn't go quite as far from WoW as it promised, still made some good headway, and it became the fastest selling MMO of all time. Now Elder Scrolls Online falls into a weird space. It would be unfair to call it a WoW clone. It does have its differences, and it's hard to get out from the shadow of a game that's been around for so long. Other aspects of Elder Scrolls Online copy other games. The PvP for instance is almost identical to that of Guild Wars 2 with very little iteration. Even things that ArenaNet put into their PvP that failed and were later removed are actually still planned for Elder Scrolls Online. The example of this is the Elder Scrolls themselves. This is an almost identical system to Orbs in Guild Wars 2. All they did was allow the leading team to snowball, and they were quickly removed from Guild Wars post-launch. Yet Elder Scrolls Online is going ahead with the exact same feature and not learning from another's mistakes. However, on the other hand, could copying the best features from a wide variety of games come together to create something brilliant? Ignoring things like the scrolls, what they've done is cherry pick the good features of other titles and put them into the Elder Scrolls universe and make a game out of it. Looking at it that way, it sounds pretty good. Now, issues with MMO gamers are not the only thing Elder Scrolls Online has to compete with. They're also bringing in players from a series of games that's single player and on console, not to mention the game itself will be launching on console as well. Trying to convince those players from consoles to stick around could be even harder than the original MMO veterans. Sub fees, server downtimes, regular patches, large paid expansions, these are things that are fairly alien to purely console gamers, and they're the things that are just outside of the game. When you start getting into explaining how things like tanks and healers work, and how you need to grind out the same piece of content multiple times to get stuff, I wonder how well it's going to go down. It's hard to base this off pre-release reactions. The people complaining on the forums are a vocal minority, and until release it's not really possible to see how well it will go down. If by the time they come to the console launch they've worked out all the initial teething problems, it could go very well. And I think at this point we land on the key problem with the Elder Scrolls Online. It's not whether it's a WoW clone or not, it's that the game can't please everyone, and in the process of trying to, they might please no one. They have to balance fans against the series against MMO players and the console against the PC. Allowances have to be made on both sides. A good example of this is the first person mode. Initially the game didn't have it, but after feedback the devs decided to put it in. Now, anyone with experience of an MMO knows first person is not going to work very well. In PvE you have mobs spawning behind you that you don't see, not an issue in a single player game where everything is just spawned in the area of your vision, and in PvP you're just going to be at a clear disadvantage to those playing in third person. Now that's a small thing and players get the choice between the two, but not everything has that choice. To move the game to an MMO you need to remove most of the freedom the single player game offered, and that loss of freedom is what could do the most damage. In the single player games you could kill almost any NPC, clear an enemy camp and have it remain clear, and above all create your own individual story, completely ignoring the main tale of the game. In an MMO that's not possible. Other players need those NPCs, enemies have to respawn so the next guy in line can kill them, and everyone around you is doing the same thing. You don't really have any individual story outside of the main story itself, and even that is just the illusion of individualism. As far as console versus PC goes, you see things like the number of available skills. Now, while having 30 skills available on the screen at once is probably not the best game design, limiting it to 6 is quite low compared to other titles. This looks to be a decision made to make up for the lack of buttons on a controller, rather than the quality of the game experience itself. Build variety will become very limited as certain skills become must-haves and your options get less and less. Trying to keep everything balanced is no easy job and will become a major challenge for devs. Moving to an MMO does of course bring with it other benefits, so while the individual story might be lost, those player driven one-off moments become a thing that couldn't happen in a single player game. It allows for things like huge scale PvP and battles that can never be realised in single player. It's just the question of do the benefits make up for the losses for those players who are fans of the previous games. So as we saw with SWTOR, story alone can't keep your game alive, and if it's just like everything else the players won't stick around, especially if you're asking them to pay for the privilege. But it would be unfair to call Elder Scrolls Online a WoW clone. It does enough things different to give it some distance, however the things it does different are just from other titles. Could Elder Scrolls Online be the coming together of many great things? Features from some of the most successful games of all time, crossed with one of the most successful series of all time? It sounds pretty good on paper. So what are your thoughts? Is Elder Scrolls Online going to fall into the deep dark pit of failed MMOs, or is it going to be the coming together of many great things? Let me know in the comments, but for now I've been ASCII and you've been watching Nerf TV. Thank you for watching.